School Committee meeting on Thursday, October 9th, 2025. We will begin this meeting at 6 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is to adjourn to executive session, and we will roll call out. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Rose? Ms. Ebert-Long?
Aye.
Sure. Yes.
Clark?
Aye.
All right, we will adjourn to executive session, and we will return at approximately 6:30. Good evening, and we have returned from executive session, and we will continue on with our agenda. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from September 25th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I will abstain. Oh. And I will abstain. And the next on our agenda is our MRHS student representative, Maggie Power.
Hi guys, nice to see you again. I'm gonna be taking over for Jason this year, so that might be a bit hard, but we're gonna give it a shot. All right, so it's been a good month and a half coming back to school, beginning of September. It's my senior year, so that's exciting. A lot of stuff going on, but very happy to be back. So the first couple weeks of September were, I guess, kind of just adjusting, getting used to things. I feel like things really picked up the last couple of weeks. So I said starting the week of September 29th, we had our Homecoming Spirit Week, which culminated in the pep rally on Friday. The Tuesday of that week was the Powder Puff game between our junior and senior classes. The juniors obviously won. The seniors obviously won, 16-8, but it was a lot of fun. Definitely a great tradition, so that's always a good way to start the school year, and I feel like once homecoming happens, you kind of start to feel like, it's real again. And then, again, end of September, we kind of had our curriculum nights for all the schools, good chance for families to come in, get a good sense of how classes are running, what the school year is going to be like. Definitely a nice opportunity for them to come in. Then to kind of end like the beginning of the year festivities, we had homecoming Saturday, October 4th, but the theme was Night in New York. Super fun. The dance was great. The DJ was super cool. So last homecoming, but definitely a good one. Yeah, so I think that kind of homecoming is just sets the vibe for the year. All right, and then also a couple weeks ago, auditions were hosted for the high school's production of The Outsiders, and the dates are set for the shows. There are going to be shows the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th of November, all at 7 o'clock. There's a matinee show November 12th, where the 7th graders that are reading The Outsiders get to come to the show and see how that goes on. So I think that's really cool. Loved reading The Outsiders in 7th grade, definitely. Everybody did, I think. Yeah, very excited this year. We always do a great job with our theater productions. Really excited to see what the spring musical is, but definitely go check out The Outsiders because, again, our actors are really, really great. We're also at the height of fall sports season. I think field hockey either has a game or had a game tonight. Has a game? Yeah. So that's always super exciting. Again, field hockey, really good team. All of our fall teams seem to be doing pretty good this year. So keep an eye out, I guess, in the next coming weeks as the playoffs begin to get more set. All right, and then also tonight, none of you guys can go, obviously, but I guess the Hope Squad is hosting a fundraiser at Papagino's, where they're doing a portion of the proceeds go to the Hope Squad fundraising efforts, and probably be talking a lot about the Hope Squad this year. I know Jason was a part of it, but they always do a lot of great stuff with the school, so it'd be nice to see what they do this year. And then on Monday, the holiday, the Booster Club is hosting a golf tournament to benefit our high school athletic teams. Although registration is closed, I know for all of you golfers that's probably a bummer, but it's still a good event to shout out. Hopefully raise a lot of money. I know our golf team is doing really well this year, boys golf, so that's always exciting. The Booster Club does a lot of great stuff for our sports teams. And I think I don't know, this is kind of a hard one because I feel like not too much besides the last couple weeks of September, for me at least. But I think in my next updates, probably talk more about the fall play, sports. We'll probably have a better idea of how that's going by then. Yeah, so we'll see how this year goes. But nice to see you all again. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Thanks, Maggie. Any questions, comments for Maggie?
Just
Great.
officially say welcome back. It's
Oh,
nice to see
thank
you.
you. It's nice to see you too. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving right along, the next is public comment. Seeing none, we will move to reports and discussion, and we have a first reading for some policies.
Sure. We're going to have the Director of Student Services come up and just go over policy IM-MSP. This is a brand-new policy, so we'll just have the Director of Student Services give us an overview.
Good evening, Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. This is an interesting policy because it's brand new to us in all the schools in the state. What they're looking for, and I'm actually kind of excited about it, I just wish we had more time to really be thoughtful on this policy because it's due November 1st to the state. But what they're really looking for is for students in middle school to have opportunities to understand what their options are. For CTE, which is the Career and Technical Education Programming, what type of high school programming is available, but also really to start that process of thinking about their future, their careers, where they want to go to school. So I think it's a great move for our students. This policy was really not difficult to write because we're doing so much of it. We just never kind of really put it into into a document that shows how much we're doing, so we're excited. But it is due November 1st for the first upload to it, so just in terms of timelines. So we're hoping that you find it favorable and we can move forward.
It seems like, excuse me, Madam Chair. It seems like a great idea, but you say, how many of these things you're doing now versus initiatives that will be included now in the policy going forward?
So the only thing that we're exploring, everything in the policy we're actually doing, the only thing we're exploring, and there was a grant at the high school for what's called MyCap, and DESI's really supporting and reinforcing the use of it, which is similar. It's not the same as Naviance, but it's similar. It creates a profile for a student, a portfolio, so that, and it has more options for exploring, doing preference assessments, and really creating that portfolio. So we don't have that yet across high school and middle school. It's just being piloted at the high school. So that's the only thing that we may be looking towards in the future. And as we know with policies, because we have to have it uploaded to the state doesn't mean we can't bring it back and have our year to really implement, look at the data of how it's working and see if there are other things we might explore. There are other programs like the MIFA, which is free, that we can use. It just doesn't create like the portfolio for students that we want for them to follow them from middle school to high school.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Ms. Everett-Long?
Does this, I'm looking as close as I can, it definitely, I see what you're saying, like it encompasses everything we're already doing, which is so nice to actually see that we're already doing the things and that we're formalizing the policy, like we're ahead of the times, and that's awesome. My question to you is, I'm looking for where our guidance counselors play a more perhaps significant role middle school transitioning into high school, because you're familiar with the policy. Is there somewhere I'm just not looking, or is it intended?
It doesn't cite who is implementing. So in the middle school pathway, because there's a high school pathway in the policy already, and there is a middle school. So the counselors are already engaging. So for example, they already have the career day. It takes months for them to organize it. They already have the vocational school counselors come and do a presentation. They already have the counselors from the high school come down. They do a presentation. So those things the counselors facilitate. So the only thing that's going to be a little different is the CTE programs are required to also have a policy uploaded by November with very clear guidelines on their admissions policies. what that looks like. They're going to have to now look at having lotteries versus selecting, those who are applying, which has been a little, different. And we have to offer opportunity for our seventh graders to visit the vocational schools. And that would be at the vocational school's expense in terms of transportation, but our counselors would coordinate that as well. So that's a policy they have to put in place, and then it's in this policy that we'll have that opportunity for our students. So it doesn't name who's doing it. It's,
Right.
yeah.
So I guess, so it's titled as a middle school pathway exploration policy. So again, it's exposing that age group, your 5th grade through your 7th grade, going into high school at an earlier start, what your opportunities are, what your options are. And then we're going to fold in like what we do offer, the educational piece. So I see section 3 says high school grades 8 through 12 pathway options available to students. So obviously it's saying, Monomoy Regional High School is one of your options. So I guess we have our internship program was listed, but where I didn't see was the collaboration we have with YMCA, and I don't know if that should be on this list, because if we list the internship program, is that also something we want to talk to the younger kids about? Like, hey, we'll have this program that will help you, match up with someone and teach you about your steps towards college if maybe you're a first generation. Is that something that should go under that list as well? And again, this can develop next year. I see there's other things that would fall under that.
Well, and I kind of talked to Dr. Carpenter about too, like, I think we need time to really put this in place. Like, we have a middle school pathway meeting next week. We had very little time to do this, so we met with the high school, what's it called? Sorry, can't even think. The Innovative Pathway Program with the high school had input, the middle school had input, so in this short period of time, this is what we were able to come up with. But even like the MyCap, like, I had that in there, and I'm like, oh, we'd like to do it, but we're not quite there yet. So I think for our first run at this, we need to be able to implement the things that we're doing with Fidelity and really look and see. And we also have to get the policies from the CTE programs so that we can make sure that we're following those guidelines. So I think there's a lot more that definitely can be added, and I think we have time to do that. But I think we want to be really thoughtful about it and be able to have the policy and then really work on next year, because come October, we have to put it on the website, but October, we have to have a full communication out to our community and families on exactly what we're doing. And I just don't feel like we've had the time under, the requirements for November.
I don't want to hold the policy up, because if it has a deadline of November 1st, there's certainly not anything major. I was just suggesting that we add it as a bullet, because it's something I'm bringing up now, that we're aware that we are facilitating and doing, much like a lot of the other items. And to add that in, I don't think it would hold up the policy, but if it did, I certainly would be fine waiting until, we reviewed it again next year. But since we already have that relationship and have already established that program, I do think it would fit on that list. That's all I got.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Mr. Edwards?
Sure. Any other comments on the middle school pathway exploration policy before we move to the next first reading? The next policy we reviewed was policy BEDC, the quorum policy. There were no proposed changes to this policy, so this one was just a review. Any comments? The next policy is file BEDD, the rules of order. This was language that was suggested by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, so we just incorporated that new language similar to what we had before, but we incorporated their suggestions into the policy. Any comments? File BEDF, the voting method. Again, This one was reviewed by the Massachusetts Association of School Committee. They suggested that we added language for open meetings versus executive session. So you can see that language has been added. Any comments? The next one is file BEE, special procedures for conducting hearings. Again, this one was reviewed by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, so we incorporated some of their suggestions. Any comments? And the last one for the first read is file BGB/BGC, the policy adoption and policy amendment. Again, this one was reviewed by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and we just incorporated some of their suggestions into it. Any comments?
All right, so we'll bring those all back for a second reading at our next meeting. Next on our agenda is the second reading for policy ADDA, the fingerprint policy. Any comments, questions? Do I have a motion? Ms. Gray?
I'd like to make a motion to accept file ADDA, the fingerprint policy, as presented in the packet.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. Moving right along, in front of you is, this summer, the Harwich Select Board wrote us a letter that we were able to review at our workshop, requesting that we review our regional agreement. So this is a drafted letter that I came up with to respond to their letter that they wrote to us. And I wanted to bring it to our full board so that we could vote for me to be able to use this and respond to the Harwich Select Board, as well as CC this to the Chatham Select Board because it is a regional agreement between the two towns. Questions, comments? Oh,
Sure. So, so at the end of this letter, it also, just tries to openly invite the Harwich Select Board members to come on next Tuesday. I'll be doing the same presentation that I did before the Harwich Select Board for the Chatham Select Board members. And I'm sure, just as there was in Harwich, there was follow-up questions to come out of that. I think it would be good to have everybody in the same room. We also have in this letter a good suggestion that our Finance Director, Michael McMillan, made. Let's work with both towns to come up with 5-year budget projections so that everybody can see the fiscal positions of each other and hopefully use that to provide better understanding. And the last suggestion in this is one that regularly happened when I was off Cape in the regional school district that I was at. And we routinely had almost annual meetings between all three boards, the select boards of both towns and regional districts, school committee, along with finance committees from both towns. And I think it helped just have open dialogues. I think in the 13 years that we've been together as a district, I believe we've only had one other time where all the boards came together. And I think we've been in this sort of awkward dynamic where the Harwich Select Board sort of communicates to us. The Chatham Select Board communicates to us. We're communicating back. We're sort of stuck in the middle, and it would be good to bring everybody together and not have this sort of game of telephone, but actually have everybody speaking together in the same room. And I think we could work with the chairs of each of the boards and the town managers to help craft an agenda for some sort of meeting like that. So those suggestions on, trying to, again, have a stronger union between our towns are in there.
Comments, questions? Ms. Everett-Long?
Great letter. Thank you.
So although it's not our typical practice, I would ask if people are okay with voting tonight for me to be able to send this tomorrow morning to both select boards, just because of letting them know about the meeting in Chatham next week. So if we're comfortable, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve this letter as written and send it to the members of the Harwich Select Board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So the only thing I ask is before you leave, if you all could just sign my copy so that I have a signed copy to share with both select boards. Thank you very much. The next item in our packet is actually a budget message that the town of Harwich shared with us, which I think is wonderful because they are being transparent from their side. So they wanted just to be clear about how they're going into their budget process, and I think it's a great first step from Harwich to continue this conversation. Any questions, comments? Take it in, enjoy it. Okay, moving right along to the fiscal year 27 capital plan. So exciting.
All right, good evening, school committee. I'm Mike McMillan, I'm a school business manager, and I have with me my colleague, Mr. Rick Travers, the facilities director. So we are here this evening to just give you an overview of our capital plan. So our capital plan, we're doing a little earlier this year because the town of Harwich asked for the capital items that would impact them by October 15th. So we'd like your approval to the items we're going to outline this evening to submit that to the town of Harwich. I think, go into a lot more detail, but I just proceed this by just saying that, this is early in the process, so we've really laid out all the items we'd like to do. I think, we've not really taken into account the impact on the budget yet. So as we get into the budget, we might trim this a little, but this is like kind of our starting point. So this is sort of manage expectations about what might come down the pike on this, but this is our starting point. So we did have a meeting of the finance subcommittee earlier this week, where we reviewed and they approved the plan subject to some amendments, which I've hopefully reflected here. And all right, that's it. So and I've also I do all this, hand in glove with Rick, because he's the one that knows all the buildings. And so he really is critical in helping put this information together. Our process, so we have this little capital planning process. We do a needs assessment, and that's where Rick and I work most closely. They may try and we prioritize those projects. I have a sort of formula where we look at the likelihood of something failing, and then the impact the failure would have on health and safety, on school operations, on future costs, and on the Monomoy factor. That's our ability to deliver a strategic plan. So this is all described in more detail in this narrative that accompanied these slides, but that just helps us. I mean, it's not predict, like it doesn't determine everything. It just kind of helps us organize our thoughts and our understanding, and helps us weigh up which project should take priority over which project by looking at all the different factors. And then we look at, what funding is available, is this a project which might, for example, get MSBA, the School Building Authority, funding, or other grants that are available, such as E-rate from the federal government, and then approval. And so that's kind of the stage we're at now, presenting this a proposal to you and into the select boards. And and this is just the beginning, and this process will then soon get swept up with our budget process. So while for the towns, capital is kept separate from the operating budget, for us, because the assessment goes to the towns as one number, and that kind of pulls together the operating and the capital, so really they'll get decided at the same time and through the same process. It's just quick aside. So they used to, before the towns became responsible for their elementary schools in the assessment process, the towns kind of left their capital to the district, because they didn't really see, it wasn't such a direct hit on them, because it would just get assessed through the regular assessment process. But since they're now responsible for 100% of the costs of each elementary school, they've become more involved in the capital process, and so they're sort of asking to see more detail. That, and of course, when we went to the town for the request to borrow for the siding project, that kind of raised their awareness as well. So I think both of those reasons is why they're now asking to see our capital through their capital planning process, which they haven't done before. So I'll hand over to Rick, who'll just give you a bit of an overview of how the facilities review went and what we, how we see the school buildings.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So, of course, we know our newest building, and we know some of the buildings that have been around for a while. So there's always different challenges in each one of them. But, and once again, I have to kick it back to Michael and the superintendent. They really support and understand that, yeah, you can fix something today, but in 10 years, that same item you're fixing, because of the life expectancy, is not going to work anymore as expected. And once again, we'll interrupt education or just the normal day-to-day procedures of what we go through and what we are trying to do here as a group. So that being said, we know that our Chatham buildings need a little bit more TLC than tend to be with, of course, our new high school, which we're constantly on anyway, as you well know. And so with that being said, of course, we've got the siding project coming up. But with Michael, and it was really neat to have an administrator support me this way. And I have to say this, that looking at boilers, we keep everything, we pride ourselves as a district, and I think you'll understand this, with everything working. You flip a switch, it should work. We're not going to put Band-Aids, duct tape, any of that, bubble gum, whatever it may be, to just say, hey, we'll get it later. We pride ourselves in, yeah, maybe an old piece of equipment, but we're going to keep it working because we need it to work when we need it. So that being said, Michael brought up the fact that he did a lot of research on this about boilers and how long will they last. Yes, they work. We have them fixed. We service them regularly. But at some point, it's a 40-year-old boiler. It's a 50-year-old boiler. It's not as efficient as we might like it to be. So with the buildings that need it, for instance, the Chatham schools, and actually the Howard Elementary had an older boiler that's so well maintained. We're doing a lot of that, just looking at what we should be looking at down the road as opposed to, oh, wow, it was 50 years old. We never expected for it to fail. So that's kind of where we're at there. And, of course, the high school, we're constantly staying on top of everything that's here. Even though it's 14 years old, 13 at this point, it still needs the TLC. But we give it anyway. So with that being said, we're chipping away. It's quite an aggressive list, but it's somewhat of a lack of a better way to put it, a report card on the district's equipment, just to keep us up and functioning as we should be. And that's what has been put together here. I'm pretty impressed with it, actually very impressed with it. But it's a good overall look at what has to be done and to keep these buildings 40, 50 years from now still being learning establishments. And that's the goal here. So it is a little intimidating looking at the list. I've never seen such an aggressive list, but I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of what I've seen people around me put together with information that we all got together and put together and what they did. So that being said, I'm always available for questions because there's so much we could talk about when you look at this list and different things like that of what we could, what we're tackling, what we're doing. So I'm always available because there's a lot to it. So that being said, did I touch on it?
That's good.
Okay,
yeah, you're
good.
great. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Right. You too. Thank you.
So, yes, so building's in good condition, but, if we look at the age of the components in the buildings. So, and Rick and his team do a great deal of maintaining and servicing the buildings and all the equipment, but I'm just anxious when I look at, in Chatham, we're getting on 30 years, and at the middle school, And, already over 20 years, much of the equipment and components at Harwich Elementary School. I don't think there's nothing here especially since we're dealing with the siding, there's nothing here that's urgent that has to happen today, but I just want to make sure we have a plan and we're in a good place. So I have worked in districts where they've not done that, and it becomes so difficult to catch up once you fall significantly behind. Once you have like 2 or 3 boilers leaking every winter, it's really hard to then catch up with that. So we look at, the facilities, the needs assessment, walking around the building. We look at the age of the equipment, and we come up with our priority list. We have increasingly we're dividing our projects into 2. Those projects which require borrowing. So those are our big projects which require approval from yourselves, the school committee, but also from town meeting to approve the borrowing for those projects. So we have, since we've added this, we're doing the high school construction is long gone. We're still paying the debt off on that. We now have the middle school restoration project, the first phase of that, which is the siding and windows. We're doing the procurement right now. We're expecting the bids are due in a week or so, and then we'll have a good idea of where we're coming in on the actual cost of that project. We have started borrowing for it, so that process is in place. And we're hoping to start construction in April. And the reason it is in April is we're trying to maximize the summer, so we want as much work to happen in the summer as possible to least impact on students. But the summer's not going to be enough. So if we start in April, and we can't really start sooner because we don't think we'll have the windows much sooner than April. So that's kind of what impacts that timeline. Meanwhile, we are working on the roof project, which we are doing as part of the roof project. Is a big project, and it's kind of got it's a little in the shadow because we're focused on the siding project. But the roof project is happening. We're doing it with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. We're in the feasibility phase right now, so that means they're looking at the options around the design of the new roof. They're very close to finish. That's out with the cost estimator, so they will estimate the cost, and then we'll have a good idea of where that project's coming in. However, it's just in feasibility study. Yes.
It requires approval at the 2026 town meeting?
It is 2026. So I'd like to just drop a few mistakes into my slides to make sure everyone's
See if
awake.
we're really paying
You got one, so
attention.
good work. Thank you very much.
You won the award.
Good stuff. So we got approval for the siding in 25, and we need to go to the siding in 26 for it. So, so that will be a challenge. That means we got to go to the town and request the debt to incur the debt. It will actually not impact the 27 budget because we won't actually start spending a lot of money. Well, I won't actually start paying off a debt until 28, so it'll impact the 28 budget, but we'll still need approval at the 26 town meeting because that's when we'll start incurring it. And we can't go ahead with the construction. We can't we can't move into the next phase of the MSB's project unless we have that approval. So there's a lot happening on that. So there's a lot, so I kind of apologize. There's a lot in these slides, so if you have any questions, feel free. And there is more information in the pack because this chart alone is doing a couple of things. The first is it's a list of all the big projects we've identified which involve borrowing. So as I mentioned, we have the high school construction, we have phase 1 of the middle school, replacing shingles, trimming windows, then the construction of the roof, which we are scheduling for, so kind of April into the summer of next year is when, so these are fiscal years along the top. So, fiscal year 27 starts in July 26 and ends in June 27. So I apologize for the confusion. So the siding starts in April of 26, goes into July of 20, and August of 26 will be FY 27. And then we're kind of working on the middle school construction, but the actual construction won't happen until the following summer. So that's July 27, so technically FY 28 is when we do the actual construction. A lot of work could happen before then, but that's when we do the actual construction. All right, so that's that, and those are projects we've kind of sounded out with you already. But these are kind of, the next listed projects are proposed projects. These are projects which have not had any approval yet, we've not done the design or feasibility, but based on what Rick and I are seeing when we go around the buildings, we believe over the next 10 years, these would be our priority. The first is essentially doing for Chatham Elementary School what we're doing right now for the middle school. So they're very similar in the age of the building, the condition of the siding and windows and roof are very similar. They're not as bad at Chatham Elementary School as they were at Harwich Elementary School. You know, we're not having the same reports of problems with air quality or leaking in through the siding, but that's, you know, if we don't address it, that will be in the future. You can already see, you know, like the trim is rotting and punky when you touch it. You know, you see some of the tiles on the siding, the shingle, is sort of starting to break up, and it feels, you know, it feels, what's the word? Breakable. Yeah. So we believe that will be a project we should be planning for. I should say one more thing is that these dates, these are probably the early, you know, we'll always try and prolong it as much as, you know, take a conservative approach. So we don't want to do anything too soon. You want to maximize the length of the life of the things we have. So if we can wait another year without being foolhardy and without risking anything, we will. But I think around this time is when we should start to be thinking about Chatham Elementary School. And so that comment particularly goes for the high school track and field. So that's something we're really watching. We want to keep that track and field. They're in good condition, but we are starting to see, you know, cracks increasingly. And cracks are okay, as we've been told. That's just part of the life of these things outside. But then the cracks start to turn to holes, and we patch the holes, and we just kind of watch when the amount of maintenance and repair we're having to do becomes too much, and it's starting to really chip away at the functionality of the track and the field, and when it becomes a safety issue. So right now we're penciling that in for around, you know, the summer of 28, so that's into FY29. And then a roof, that Harwich Elementary School roof, you know, by 20, so right now that's about 23 years old, so by 20, then we'll be getting close to 30 years old by 2032, FY23. So although it's fine now and we keep patching it, you know, you are pushing the length of a roof at 30 years, especially in the, you know, the coastal climate. And then the last three are the boilers at Harwich Elementary School, the middle school, and Chatham Elementary School. So the boilers, again, you know, Rick and his team doing a great job, but we're not seeing the signs of problems. We're not seeing leaking with the boilers yet. They're still in good condition. We'll keep maintaining them, keep servicing them, but it would be crazy of us not to have them on our list right now. They'll be, you know, I mean, the Harwich Elementary ones are already, you know, 32 years old, so by then they'll be getting on for 40, they'll be over 40 years old. And these old boilers can last that long, but you know, the efficiency goes down, your repair and maintenance costs go up, and you know, you just get to a point where you have to replace them, or you're spending more money and maintaining them. It's starting to impact the quality of the life in the building. I should say, you know, we are pushing that. There are, like, each of the buildings, I think there's 3 boilers in each of them, 2 at Chatham, 3, all of them. So if one does start to fail, you know, just to give you some peace of mind, if one does fail, we have others, that, you know, 2 others. They're not supposed to be long-term solutions, but they would ensure that we got through the winter, or that we were able to keep the buildings open and heated. And we have our stabilisation fund, which we've been putting money into every year that we'd be able to draw on should that happen. All right, any questions or comments or concerns about that?
I just have one question. Is the press box not considered a capital plan
It
item?
is a capital plan item, yes. It's not debt, so we're not borrowing for it, but it's also not in the general fund. It's been funded from the Booster Club, which is why I've not made a big, I can't remember, I had it somewhere at one point, but it might be in the documentation, but yeah, it's not in this presented capital plan because it's not part of our general fund request to the towns, because it's been funded from the Booster Club.
Okay, and we're not accruing any debt? Okay.
No, yeah, we're not borrowing any money for it. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Can I
yes,
ask something, Mike?
please.
If I may, about the boilers. So once again, our boilers are all running well, knock on wood, and they're doing their job as they should. And Michael and I were talking about replacing them at what point, but there's so much technology coming at us now, whether to go electric or whatever it may be. So we're like, let's just maintain them, let's use them until we find out, when it starts showing itself, what the best technology is, because if you're going to spend money, let's throw some good money a good way, right? So, and we're thinking, at this point, we have 3 boilers, so in the middle of the winter, they cycle off each other to maintain that temperature of 145 degrees, to keep that water warm and keep the buildings warm. We think at some point, we're told we may be able to go with 2 in each building, as opposed to having the 3, which is old school, no pun intended. But so, that's kind of where we're at. So that's why we feel, let's maintain them as we've done, and once again, they run well, they do their job. But we think the technology may change at a point, we would hate to be so ambitious to miss that technology that will, at that point, have proved itself a couple of years out. So we're just going to maintain these boilers, they'll do their job, and we're hoping for maybe a really good fix when the time comes, and make that right choice that will carry us into the next few decades.
So Rick, that's a nice segue into, talking about the boilers. So we did apply to the MSBA for a boiler replacement for Harwich Elementary School, right? So that's the oldest boiler. So the way the MSBA works is it's almost primarily the age of the component. So they basically, they get all the applications, they list them in order of age and the estimated cost, and they start with the oldest and start adding up the cost, and when they get to the budget, they draw a line. Everybody above the line gets funded, everybody below the line does not get funded. So age more than condition determines how likely you are to get funding from the MSBA. So that's why we prioritize the Harwich Elementary School boiler, because although it's not in the worst condition necessarily, it is the oldest. And we were successful in getting into the feasibility, actually not even the feasibility study, like the pre-feasibility study, where they look at your project in more detail and decide if they're going to fund it. So what Rick's talking about is one of the things they said is, well, they don't replace boilers with like boilers anymore. So they don't replace gas boilers with gas. They're just replacing boilers with electric heat. So that's heat pumps. So everything would be electrical. So that's a huge change to what we have in the elementary school right now. That means changing every heating element in the building has to get taken out and new ones put in, which is heat pumps, which can be air or drilling into the ground to get heat up from the ground. It can be a combination of both. It can still include some use of gas boilers, but primarily it would be electric heat. And this is a part of a state initiative. So Massachusetts State is trying to move everybody off of gas and onto electrical heat. The issue with that is it's not just like taking one boiler out and putting another one in, which, although expensive, is not a huge project. This, going to convert everything to electric heat would be a huge project and much, much more expensive. So in the order of 4 times as expensive as doing a straight swap. Plus, the MSBA requires you, if your roof is more than 15 years old, to also replace your roof at the same time. So that would then add, another $6 or $7 million to the already $6 million of doing heating. So we go from a project which, if it's just a straight boiler swap, would still be, $1 to $2 million to a project which could be 12 million or more. So, we're at that point, we're just very early days starting this process with MSBA, but it does seem like at initial brush that is going to be too ambitious a project to tackle when we have so many other things going on and other things we want to get done. We don't have to make a decision quite yet, but that's kind of where our thinking is at, that might be a bit ambitious. But I have included in the presentation, sort of 2 possible debt schedules. The first one is if we did a full HVAC system replacement. So that means everything's coming out, all new electric heat systems are going in, and it's almost impossible to see up here on the screen. But you can see that the debt payments, which right now are around just shy of $2 million, can get up to as much as over $5 million by 2035, which would have a huge impact in our budget, and potentially mean we could do it. And then I have another debt schedule. It's still significant, but not nearly as impactful on our budget if we did not go with a full HVAC system replacement. I'll just say a little bit about this slide real quick. So what I've done here is basically looked at what the total cost to the district of the project would be. If there's MSBA or grants available, I've factored that in. And then, I have a spreadsheet to essentially estimate what debt payments would be. I think I used 4% as a APR, which might end up being a little, maybe I should be a little, might be higher, but we got 4% was one of the loans we got. So, and then estimated when the payments would begin. So you can see, so where the track and field starts a little bit earlier and the boilers are a little bit further out. So generally the debt payments go down. They're on, because the amount you're paying off some of the debt every year, your payment goes down because you have less interest every year towards the end. So that's why you can see, so for example, in the high school, the payments go down year to year. And as those ones go down, we're able to add more in and, so you get a little offset even though you're adding a project, so it's not the full cost of the project. But either way, I think this is ambitious. I think these are real needs for the district. Whether they need to happen on these exact dates, I think we'll know as we get closer to those dates, and we'll keep assessing the condition of the roof, the buildings, the town's willingness to pay for them. But I just wanted to make sure we all had all these on our horizon, and so we make sure that we're planning for them and keeping in mind that these projects are out there and will need to be tackled at some point. And I think we just, we've been lucky. We've had 10 years of just paying off the high school. Personally, I think we need to start increasing our debt ratio. We need to start investing in more projects to keep these buildings going for another 20, 30, 40 years and beyond. So I think that's this, maybe not quite as ambitious as this. And, some projects will just take a little longer to come online, but I think we should be looking at something like this in the next 10 years. All right, so that's the debt projects. So I'll try and go faster as we get into the capital projects, but I just want to give you a sense of those big projects. Capital, so everything else on the capital plan, so I have included definitions of what is capital. So our definition of capital is, I use basically what the state gives schools. The town of Harwich has their own one, the town of Chatham has their own one, so all of those are included. Plus, I also interpret it a little loosely, so that anything that's going to have a big impact on our budget, which relates to our buildings and equipment, I include here, even if it's not always technically a capital item. I just want to make sure you're all aware of it and it's on our plan. Does that make sense? So broadly, for example, these are the ones we approved for this year. Technically, some people wouldn't consider service and repair of exhaust fans capital, but it is part of our capital maintenance. It's maintaining our buildings, so I did include it just so you're aware of what's going on. But these are our projects which we're doing right now, which were approved as the FY26 budget. So we continue to replace carpet at the middle school and Chatham Elementary School. We have the service and exhaust fans at the middle school that we've maintained, and we're almost done with those, or getting them all up to where they need to be. Replacing the alarm system at Harwich Elementary School and the vehicle at the high school. So this was a little lower in the previous year just because we were kind of focused on getting the siding project up and running, and that's really what we've been doing. And these are the projects that we have slated in for FY25 now. So network switches, that's part of our technology maintenance plan. As you know, our internet network is increasingly important for everything we do in the district, and is increasingly subject to attacks from, virus software, from people trying to get into our network to access our data. And our IT director, Mackenzie Arlitz, does a spectacular job of maintaining that infrastructure and keeping on top of everything with support from we have a couple of vendors we use to help us with security, but we really need to keep the equipment up to date. You're supposed to be supposed to be replacing switches every 8 to 10 years. These are getting on for the ones that were put in with the high school, so they're now 12, 13 years old. And we really just need to start a plan to refresh all the network switches over the next few years. They are, well, to my mind, eye-wateringly expensive. Switches, that will be cheap, right? So this will be hundreds of thousands of dollars over multiple years. The priority ones are here at the high school, so that's that $100,000. And that is already net of money we're hoping to get from E-rate. So I've already factored that in. So we should get that as long as the E-rate system, which is a federal system to offset the costs of electronics and telecommunications for schools. And it has been funded, and they've said it's going to be funded for next year. So, and it comes in you get a 5-year grant. So I think ours is estimated to be around $300,000 we should be able to spend over 5 years. So I'm working with Mackenzie and our consultant who helps us with that to come up with a plan. But the first priority would be the network switches. E-rate. High school building lighting control system. And just, this is a new building, it has way more advanced technology, which means, guess what, it breaks down way more than the other schools. So, and it needs to be replaced and fixed, and it's more costly to fix, We were just joking, because, we have lighting systems which are like 30 years old and much easier to fix and repair at the other schools. But here, they're more complicated, there's more technology involved, they become, we can't get parts anymore, they're obsolete, and so that's part of the problem we're facing with the lighting system here at the high school. So we're working on a project to make sure we have the necessary pieces replaced in that system for next year. I'd love to finish the classroom and hallway carpet tile replacement at the middle school, and there's like one more classroom at Chatham Elementary School that we would like to replace the carpet in. We'd also like to continue replacing the rooftop units at Harwich Elementary School. We had some that were failing. The ones that were failing are replaced, but we just want to keep going with that system to replace the next ones before they start failing. This one I think is a priority because it would also include the dehumidification system for the library.
Can I ask something real quick?
Please.
So the cost for the floors at the schools, the superintendent wanted all the asbestos out of the buildings, though, and most of you know this, but I'll just say it just for the folks that don't. Asbestos is fine as long as you don't disturb it. So we had some floors that were covered with carpet at different schools, and the superintendent said he wanted it all out of the building, whether it was an issue or not. But in most cases where we rip the floor, you're disturbing the asbestos. So that being said, that's why the costs tend to be a little bit more, because just to abate it and do it properly and have the companies come in, it's so costly. So I just wanted to add that's happening coinciding. So there's a real good thing happening besides removing old carpets that have been there for who knows how many years, replacing those floors. There's a little more entailed than just ripping it out and replacing the floor. So I just wanted to make that clear that a lot of that is a cost. It can cost, just for the sake of throwing a number, it can cost you $10,000 to just rid a room, 20 by 25 room of asbestos. And of course, we do it right as we would be expect. I mean, that's a no-brainer, but it does cost.
Yeah.
So that being said, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So actually, it also was crazy. So we have a Vertex, who is our consultant, who develops the asbestos material removal plan, and that's in the bid. When we go out to the vendors, we say, okay, who can come in and remove this? Here's the plan you have to follow. And then Vertex, the company, come and monitor them the entire time it's happening to ensure they follow the correct protocols, and there's no risk to the air quality or to students or staff or anybody using that building. So that's maybe why it might be more expensive than you'd expect. So I just want to highlight two other quick things. Well, one is, so the auditorium stage curtain, which I have increased, so I had budgeted $12,000 for that, but my wonderful school committee finance suggested that might not be enough. So I did a little research, and I added, I increased the budget here, because it, will include, the railings, and there's multiple curtains on a stage curtain, it's not just one, as if I didn't know that. So I added that to it. So the other thing we added was replacing replacing classroom furniture. So the classroom furniture, really Harwich, at Chatham Elementary School and at the middle school is, old as the hills. It's, old, it's heavy, it's not conducive to really modern teaching where you have students moving in and out of groups and you have them moving around the classroom and you have, different spaces and different, styles in the classroom. Screws are falling out, teachers' desks are dented, they're not very comfortable to sit at. So we would like to replace them. And so I had included starting to replace them, but it's a lot, it's expensive. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace each building's furniture. But and another really great recommendation from the finance subcommittee was instead of trying to do it all in 1 year, we'd spread it out over a number of years. So you start to chip away, you get it on the list, and we start to chip away and start to replace it over time, which I think, the part of the problem, and this is what the finance subcommittee raised, is if it's this big nugget of, $400,000, it just never gets done because it's just too much to do with all the other stuff we're trying to do, and and that's what's happened. It just keeps getting moved down. Every year I just kind of move it a few more years down the plan, but instead we spread it out and it's a smaller amount. We can start to chip away at it. So I included just $25,000, and then next year it would be a little bit more, and the following year a little bit more, and then consistently fund that for 3 or 4 years until we're able to get through all the furniture. So I think that's a great idea, and I think will make a huge difference to the students in the classroom and the teachers who are, working in that classroom every day, and I think that'll be much more conducive to their learning. So I think, it'll be so exciting if we were able to get that done. So those are the items we have, prioritized for this year. The network switches are a security issue. The lighting control is a safety issue. There is a safety element, replacing the asbestos, and also just replacing tiles which impact air quality. Auditorium lights in the auditorium. This is the floor, like the guide lights, the floor in the audience. So if when it's dark, the little lights you see in the floor to guide you, you need to go to the bathroom in the middle of the show. These are the lights you see. So some of them have started to fail, and that's we have members of the community coming and visit, they watch shows, and they're trying to get up and down the stairs in the dark. There's just a risk of tripping, falling. So that's why I would really love to be able to get that done. All right. Any questions on any of those items? Yes.
I actually don't have a question, but what I would emphasize is that the concept is that we don't have a larger nut when we're talking about some of these more tangible projects. And that's important to remember when it comes down to when we have to sharpen our pencils for our budget.
Yeah.
That we remember these items are purposefully spread out for a larger goal. So we need to really be mindful of that and be like, well, we don't need the furniture this year, because we can get into that habit of like, what can get, and obviously sometimes things absolutely have to get pushed, but just be mindful when we do move in deeper into the budget season, we do have intention of having a more of a phased approach.
Yeah.
So we want to pay attention to these specific items and maybe try our best not to push them out and out, because then we're just creating the same problem again. And this is trying to make things more tangible.
Yeah, I think and it's so good.
We'll be back where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, we'll be back where we started, I totally agree. And I think, ideally you get to a place where you just have a budget line for replacing school furniture, and it's enough to just keep the refresh. So you never have to add or subtract your budget. You just always have, and it might be you have different projects. So you're doing furniture for this period of 5 years, and then you have something else for 5 years, and so it's just like Robin talks about. It's an evergreen, so we're always in a good place, and our budget's not jumping up and down because we've got a plan for that, and that's an excellent district capital plan.
Right, you got to remember, if you talk about school furniture, that's going to change as the years go by. If you budget for over a 2-year period, which could be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you get it then you're going to be stuck with that for the next 20 years, and that will be obsolete.
Yeah, 100%.
So this way, you'll always have a chance to be as current as you possibly can.
I think that's great. And we did talk, there is a trade-off, because obviously if you go out tomorrow and buy all the furniture at once, you get a better price, but the trade-off is we can't do that, so we never get it done. So the trade-off is, yes, it might be a little more inefficient, but at least it's getting done. And there are other trade-offs like the good quality you get. All right. So that's ones we identified, and we went through, and we picked out through the scoring system and so on, and the impact these projects will have on the buildings. So this is everything else. That's obviously unreadable up there, but these are all the other items we've identified over the next 10 years. And I've included a short description in the narrative that went along with this. I want to see if there's any I wanted to highlight. So there's a couple I want to highlight at the top. One is, this was not in the budget, but we're trying to get it done this year, which is the generator transfer switch at the middle school. So I feel this is a priority safety issue, and I believe we can afford it in our budget this year. I think it's going to be, I have the number, I can't remember how much did we say. Do you remember? No, it's not. It's under $10,000, I think, but it's a single item. And so basically what happens is when the power fails, the generators automatically come on. But when the power goes off, our generator doesn't automatically go. Sorry, when the power comes back on, the generator at the moment does not switch off, and somebody has to go down and manually move it over. But that's a lot of electricity that's running when that happens, and it shouldn't be done manually. It should be an automatic switch. So I really want to get that fixed, because I think it's too risky for our staff to be involved doing stuff like that. So we're trying to get that done as soon as possible.
I was just going to also highlight, the phasing kind of.
Yes.
Would be the Chatham Elementary School and the Monomoy Regional Middle School doors, which was actually Brad who had suggested.
Yes.
That, I think, started the phasing conversation.
Yeah.
You'll see that that's phased out because you can bite that off more and we start working with, and again, is it more cost efficient? I don't know, but it works better for our budget. So we
Yeah.
have spread that out as well to see if that's a more tangible approach.
And so just so you know, so what I did is I sort of, after that conversation, the way I did it is I started with a smaller amount and sort of increased it. So you sort of start small and then just, you don't go straight to the full amount, you kind of step up. But the superintendent and Rick and I went and looked at some doors, to just like see what exactly is going to, to get a better idea. And I think we may be able to do, I think it's going to depend on the door. Like, I think each door is going to require a different solution, which makes this all the more sensible. Like, we won't have to replace every door, and some of the doors will be able to just replace, like, the weather stripping or the hardware. In some doors, we might have to replace everything. So there might be different approaches just to make sure those doors continue to open easily and lock properly. So I think that makes all the more sense to have that phasing approach. I mean, there is a thing, and I appreciate it as well. Like, something that's 8-9 years out, who knows if that will actually happen that year? So much will have happened by then. But it's critical that we have it on our radar. We're thinking about it, and we're making sure that we know that we have a plan for when it might happen. And that we've evaluated. A lot of this is just that we've evaluated this need and made a decision that we need to attack when we need to tackle it. So some of these other items, like the generators, are on there, and they might also end up being more expensive than that. But it's a placeholder, and the generators are in great condition. They are just getting old, and we just want to make sure that we have them flagged on our plan. So that's everything. So the budget impact. So, and this is why I started by saying this was like a big ask. So there's a lot of a budget impact in this. So the capital projects is an increase of $181,000 on what we had this year, and the debt payments, because that's the middle school siding debt coming online in 27, is $600,000. So that would be a big impact in the budget. There are some unknowns still. We don't actually know how much the siding project is going to cost. We'll find that out in a few weeks' time, and we'll have a much better idea of what the bids come in and then what the borrowing will be required. We don't also know, I need to, talk to our financial advisors and work out exactly how many years, what's the right number of years to borrow the funds over, and that will obviously impact the borrowing, the payments each year. And I also want to talk, we might structure the debt. We can also structure the debt to see what the first year's payment might not be the same as the second year, and we can work that out over the period of the loan, so we can kind of ease into those payments as well, which might be able to modulate the year-to-year impact before we're up to what we need to be paying the total cost. And then the last thing I just wanted to highlight is we have also in here right now continuing to put in $50,000 to our stabilization fund. Right now, I think we're up to $360,000 in our stabilization fund, so that would get us over $400,000. So as we get into the process, if we, as we look at these things, we might decide over the next few weeks if we want to increase the amount of money we're paying into the stabilization fund, because we know we have so many needs on our capital plan. We know we're balancing a lot of needs. So maybe we should be putting more into our stabilization fund. That's something to think about as we get into the budget. So actually this next step is to present, well, it's not next step, this is what's happening right now. We're presenting to the school committee. We will share a plan with the select boards and their capital planning committees. As I mentioned, I'll finalise the debt schedule for the middle school siding project. I'll get the final estimates for the middle school roofing project and include those final figures in our 27 budget proposal. So I think that's where the rubber will hit the road, and we can see how that fits with all the other priorities in the rest of the budget, and how much, then we'll start to make decisions about what's in and what's out. But that, for now, is our capital plan. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Okay.
So the next day, I guess I just would like, can I maybe ask for approval to share this with the select boards? I don't know if we put it on for a vote. It doesn't necessarily need a vote, but.
Are we comfortable voting on this evening? If so, I would entertain a motion. Ms. Seabrett Long?
Motion to approve the FY27 capital plan as presented in our packet this evening.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
All
All right.
right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would be remiss, I know I've taken up too much of your time, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank, Rick and his team and all the lead custodians at the high school who do all the work. So I put these spreadsheets together, they do the actual work that's involved. So they do such a good job, and it's the buildings of our credit to them. So,
Yes, thank you for all you do.
thank you, Rick.
Thank you. A lot of people to thank you, so thank you. But I mean that about, if ever you're interested, I know that's a lot. We live it, so it's kind of like, oh yeah, we know it intimately. That's a better way to put it, but please, I'm always available. If you want to see something, you have a question on any of the capital, you want to see it yourself, put eyes on it, fantastic. I would welcome it, I would love it. Anytime, I'm always available, okay?
You just want to
Thank
show off
you.
your boilers, Rick?
What's
You
that?
just want to show off all your boilers?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next on our agenda is the prior year encumbrances.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is a prior encumbrance. We've had this last, a few times since the start of the new school year. This is a slightly different one in that this is a payroll encumbrance, or a payroll prior year encumbrance. So an employee who left their employment last year in June, but was not paid out their sick time, under the contract, they're entitled to a portion of their sick time to be paid out. They did not receive that at the time, and so we now need your approval in order to pay them for that missed payment.
Any questions? Discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of $5,219.37 in FY25 payroll costs not previously encumbered as presented to the school committee.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Ms. Seabrett Long?
I just have a question. I'm not quite sure how to word it. Is this, what's the delay, I guess? I guess that would start my
So
ability
this was
to-
an oversight, so they should have received it and they didn't.
I know
So
I
this
read
is-
the back, that's why
Yeah.
I'm just. But, okay, all
So
right.
when they left, so they were entitled to that level of sick leave. And it
Okay.
wasn't paid out at the time. And now when we checked the records, when we went through the records, we realized this person had not received the amount they supposed to receive. And so now it's rectifying that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along to October 1, 2025 enrollment report.
So in your packet, there is the FY26 enrollment. In Massachusetts, school districts report their October 1, like how many students you have attending your school district as of October 1. That's sort of the one standard that goes across all districts, so when you're comparing enrollment. So our October 1 number for our total district, the number of students that are in district is 1,645. If you include the 21 students that are out of district, it's 1,666. Things that you can also kind of point out in this, the Chatham resident enrollment in our total district counts was down by 7.25%. Our Harwich resident student enrollment was down by 5.5%. And our school choice students is up slightly at 2.6%. That notion that the Chatham enrollment's down, the Harwich enrollment's down, it's a continuation of a now 2+ decade-long trend of just fewer and fewer students, school-aged children on Cape Cod. In fact, if you look at how many students are in this year's current senior class, there's 134 students in this year's senior class. Last year's senior class was our bumper crop. That was the largest group when we came together as Monomoy. Those children were in kindergarten, and we knew that we were going to be seeing a cohort, well over 150 students senior year. So you see that, that we have been at sort of that 157 was that peak cohort. Over the next couple years, we're going to see our cohorts drop below, quickly below that 140 mark, so that the cohorts from 8th grade up to 10th grade are all in the 130s. When we look at grades 5 and 6, they start dipping down into the 120s, 126, 118. And then if you were to add up the kindergartners from both towns and the first graders and grade level by grade level, we see us going from our combined 4th graders are at 115, our combined 2nd graders are down at 92. So the size of our cohorts keeps getting progressively smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, if we look at each building, which building lost the most students last year, we see at the building level, Harwich Elementary School lost 8.4% of its student enrollment in 1 year. Again, big group of 4th graders moved up into 5th grade, smaller number of students coming in the door in preschool and kindergarten. Chatham Elementary actually went up slightly. Chatham Elementary went up by 4%, largely attributable to us adding the PUPS preschool program at Chatham Elementary School. So that preschool program is the one thing that boosted Chatham's enrollment. Without that preschool addition there, Chatham Elementary would have lost enrollment too. Our middle school lost 3.5% of its enrollment, and the high school, because we had that big senior class graduate last year, and a much smaller 8th grade class come in, the high school lost 5.1% of its enrollment. Historically, there are 2 inflection points to kind of point out, and that's historically the district will see a net loss of students as they move from 5th grade into 6th grade. The reason is we have like Lighthouse Charter Schools in our backyard, and they're a 6 through 8 school. We also find that some of the other school districts on the Cape have middle school starting in 6th grade. So some of our school choice students choose to stay home. So you'll notice that in 5th grade, we had 121 5th graders last year, 118 this year. So a net loss of only 3 students. Not bad considering that the charter school's in Harwich. The other inflection point that you see is when students move from 8th grade into 9th grade. 8th grade and 9th grade is where some students that are 8th graders say, hey, I want to stay in my neighborhood 9th grade. But the biggest change is we have, moving from 8th grade to 9th grade, the students have the option to go to the technical high school that's also in Harwich. So you see that we had 144 students in 8th grade last year, and we have 139 students in 9th grade this year. So so a slight change, but those are places annually that you see a loss of enrollment because the other options. The other option that happens in that 8th to 9th grade range is there are some families that may choose Sturgis Charter School as an option. But again, globally speaking, it's a fairly small attrition of students in those, both in the movement from 5th grade to 6th grade and from 8th to 9th. I don't know if anybody else has questions, but sort of the overview on where we are with enrollment.
Madam Chair. I do just want to point out, you did mention that the Harwich Elementary School had the most significant increase. A significant portion of that is, I believe, due to the PUPS pre-K program. So the pre-K for the Harwich Elementary School is down 12 students, and the pre-K program for the Chatham Elementary School is up 9. So if you actually eliminate that PUPS pre-K kind of change out of it, Chatham would actually have a net decrease, and Harwich's, that represented almost a third of the decrease. So I do want to point that out, that a significant shift is because of that PUPS pre-K program.
Anything else? All right, moving right along to our superintendent search timeline and process. So in your packet, what you'll find is, the superintendent search subcommittee met last week, and we met with the representative who is our field manager, Sean Costello from Mask, who helped us walk through what the process looks like. We were able to determine the timeline that night. It is ambitious, but we are feeling confident that we can find the right candidate within this timeline. You, in your packet, have the timeline for the search. You also have the email that was sent out by me with an application link for anyone who would like to apply to be part of the screening committee. And then also a copy of what the Google form looks like, what the actual application looks like. The screening committee will be made up of 4 members from our school committee, 4 teachers, 1 from each building, 2 parents or caregivers, 1 member of our central office administration, 1 principal, and 1 student. And then the last thing that you have in your packet is just a draft of the brochure that will be accompanied with the application once we post the position, which will be on Thursday, October 23rd. Any questions? Ms. Seabright-Long?
The application to fill the seats, is that, so it's open to everyone who got this email, presumably, or the applicant, right?
Yes.
So where there's very few seats available for those particular spots, the subcommittee, the superintendent search subcommittee, goes through all the applications
Correct.
of all the people that submit interest.
Correct.
Okay, and then you guys determine who's on the committee, so you narrow it down to those
To
numbers?
fill those positions.
Okay, and the number of representatives, is that based on, I'm assuming the consultant kind of like guides you to be like, you need one of this and one of that, and, okay. And then does he help, or she, with kind of a, like things you should be looking for in your applications, or is it really like a?
Screening process, you mean?
Yeah, a screening process, yeah, thank you.
He's there every meeting we have.
Right, so he kind of sets you up with like, this is your screening process, these are the things you should be looking for, these are the attributes you should be looking for each applicant, kind of thing?
I mean, we kind of talked about what the stakeholders were, or who we would like the stakeholders to be, and he kind of refined that for us and helped us think about, how many
Of each.
Our original, when we met prior to him joining us, we had a lot more, a bigger number.
For
and-
each top, or for like variety?
For state, yes.
Yeah.
And so, just based on, what's happening in the state for other superintendent searches, this felt right to us at last week's meeting.
Will the committee be open to, if there's 2 people that you think are like, perfect for it, would you be open to altering those numbers?
I think we'd have to think about that. We'd have to bring it
I just
back.
didn't know if it was set in stone, or if it was a particular, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I notice there isn't a visitation to the finalist districts. Like when we hired Scott, each one of the finalists, we went to their district and talked to their key players. And is that something they don't do now?
So, we did talk about it, and it was, and anybody that's on the committee can add, but basically what the field manager suggested is that any information we can glean from contacting people that are in the previous district, instead of actually going to visit the previous district. So that was just the thought around that. Anything else?
If you go to the district, you're going to have something, like a plan set up for you, so you're going to meet the most positive people during that, because your candidate is setting up those meetings directly, so it might be better for those phone calls, just so there's no, it's a phone call, it's a conversation, as opposed to a big possible production of some sort.
If I can just chime in, I think I think you might have been on the group that came to visit me. I think it was you, Jeff, and Sharon Stout. I remember all those years back. And, I mean, it was a set of individuals that I had arranged for you to meet. And I believe the subcommittee, had talked about, having, that it'd be a very thorough sort of phone call vetting. So you'd be talking to the same people just over the phone or Zoom, not in a, not visiting the district, again, in part to expedite the process.
Yeah, the one thing, I went to 2 districts, and you also walk through the school buildings and see how things are being maintained and where focuses are. It's not just talking to the people, so, in Scott's district, we're good.
Trustee Retlow?
I think I would add I think it's important to visit the district for that reason alone, because I think just as much as someone could, and I don't think they would, orchestrate the candidates for you to speak to, I think that you can do the same thing with a phone call and setting up the best opportunity for someone to talk to one of us or whoever it is about the candidate. So I do think it's important to go to that district and see for yourself, because walking through a hallway to get to that planned meeting can tell you a lot about the functionality and energy in that district. So I do think I would go back and say that I would make that part. If I could contribute, that would be something I think would be important.
Mr. Edwards?
Just kind of what other people on the subcommittee were saying, we just have a very tight timeline, just because we're trying to hopefully hire the finalists before other school districts hire them. So if you look at the schedule, we publicly announced the finalists on Thursday, December 11th, and the finalists are interviewed on the 17th. So it is a very tight time frame.
And the reason why we want to have an aggressive timeline and think it's really important is because we want to make sure we can get the best person. Because otherwise, while we're looking for a superintendent, as we know, other school districts are looking for them as well. So we didn't want to draw this out even after the new year. So what we wanted to be able to do is really get our first choice and not have, the top 1 or the top 2 people, because we're taking a longer time, get taken by somebody else.
I think we're hearing what you're saying, though, so we can bring this back to our subcommittee. I mean, it would be tight. I mean, there is a day or 2 in between when the finalists are announced and when they come for their visit here. So we can talk to our field manager and see, if that's possible, and, pros and cons as he sees it in searches today. So we can definitely bring that back to him and then get back to you. Any other questions, comments? All right. So moving right along, so we have the subcommittee representative and liaisons reports. Basically, the superintendent search subcommittee talked about all the things that we just looked at. And then we did have a finance subcommittee meeting on Monday.
God, was it Monday?
It was Monday.
Yes, it was. It feels like just yesterday. Yes, and Michael did a wonderful job preparing our capital plan, as usual. And I would actually, kudos to the subcommittee who was there, because we really did work as a team and kind of pull apart and come up with some really creative things, thinking of the town of Harwich, thinking of the town of Chatham, thinking of the regional agreement, and how we can continue to be good partners, and come up with some ideas, which I think is going to support our budget planning and the town's budget planning going forward, and it really is transparent as usual. So I was really happy with the outcome, and I think the biggest thing that came out was kind of like that phasing approach that we want to try. Otherwise, Michael did most of the heavy lifting on that. So, he's over there. Thank you. And then we have quite a few meetings ahead of us. So hopefully they will continue as productively as the last one did.
Michael, it's called taking a bite of the elephant, or eating the elephant one bite at a time.
I like it.
All right, we have not had a middle school building committee meeting, but there has been some behind-the-scenes updates to share.
I think it's just really quick. So I think, as Michael had mentioned, we will have a lot of knowns to bring back to the committee, both the building committee, but also the school committee itself at our next meeting. So there's a building committee meeting the Monday before our next school committee meeting. At that, it'll be shared, where the different bids came in, and we should know what that project budget's going to look like, and who's the contractor that would be recommended to move forward.
Questions, comments? All right, moving right along to the superintendent's report.
I'll be quick before Ryan just says motion to adjourn. Or Ryan Clark, that is.
Said a half hour ago.
So in terms, I have a few recognitions. We had a Parent University on School Safety late this past month. It was well attended. Actually, it was the best attended Parent University on School Safety that we had. I'd really like to thank Chief Anderson and Chief Considine of the Chatham and Harwich Police Departments respectively, as well as a number of their officers from their safety departments for being there, sharing information and answering questions. The session is recorded and can be found on our website in the Parent University section. October is National School Principal Month, and I want to recognize the fantastic group of principals and assistant principals that we have here that I am just blessed to work with. October 2nd was also Custodian Appreciation Day, and I want to honor the incredible facilities team we have. They go far and above every day here. Monomoy High School senior Solomon Anatar won first place in the Protect Our Past Film Festival contest last weekend for his short films showcasing historic homes in Sandwich. You can find a link to his winning video on our website. And lastly, we have a new employee recognition program, again, coming out of the employee survey that was done. So we announced our first district-wide staff shout-out for September. It went to Jessica Friedman. Jessica is a science teacher at Monomoy Regional High School, an advisor to the school's STEMinist Club. She was nominated by her students who said, Ms. Friedman has always been so kind and positive towards her students. If a student is struggling with a topic or a lesson, she will help them immediately, even teach it another way so that they understand better. And seeing Ms. Friedman happy and being kind and welcoming just made me feel welcome. Each month, the district will feature a staff member in its staff shout-out series. Staff members can be nominated by students, parents, and caregivers, and colleagues for outstanding positive contributions to the Monomoy schools at our monomoy.edu staff shout-out. Nominations for October are now open. Any staff members nominated in September can be nominated again, except for the honoree.
Questions? All right. We have had the presentation of warrants, so just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Have a good evening, everyone.
Mary, what's the score?
I was waiting for Ryan.